The Far Quest, The Chronicles of Cursoon, Book 1, by R. Jason Lynch.
Chapter 43. To Sweetwater. Very early the next morning, llElevenLabs awoke long before the others, and without rousing them, he went to put some finishing touches on the carts he had made. Some time later, Fane and Livid rose from the sleeping sack they shared and sought after the old gnome. They found llElevenLabs with a pile of curled wood shavings around his feet, and in front of him there stood a line of beautifully made carts. As planned, there were 2 push carts, while the third was slightly bigger and consisted mostly of a large cask mounted upon 2 wheels. It was clear that the bigger cart was designed to be pulled by the donkey. Moreover, all 3 were made only slightly wider than the width of a man, so that they could easily pass through even the narrowest canyons. When the gray shepherdess came to the line of carts, she ran her colorless hand along their smooth wooden side rails and nodded with admiration.
"These are wonderfully made,"
Livid declared with open praise. The little old man thanked her stiffly while suppressing the proud smile that fought to shine forth upon his wrinkled face. Just then, Fane hurried around to the end of the largest cart, opened his mouth underneath the wooden spigot that was set into the back of the cask, and twisted its handle to get a drink. However, to his disappointment, he found it empty.
"We'll need to find some place to fill the cask with water."
llElevenLabs grumbled gruffly in an attempt to hide his reaction to Livid's compliment. The mention of water caused a troubled look to pass over Livid's gray face, but she said nothing to remind them about her fears. After a moment of silence, llElevenLabs turned and started gathering supplies into the little carts he had made, and without his prompting, Livid and Fane proceeded to help the old gnome. When the sun was shining in its full strength, and its light would no longer allow Cursoon to sleep, the bard finally dragged himself out of his sack. With a loud yawn, he came to where his friends were still making preparations for their journey.
"Cursoon, look!"
Fane squealed with golden eyes while he pointed at something on the side of the donkey's cart. The bard came around while rubbing his eyes to clear the sleepiness that still lingered within his vision. There, carved across the side of the cart, was the name Far Quest. These were the same letters that had been upon the side of the airship.
"See? Mr. llElevenLabs used the same piece of wood that bore her name, so she's still with us on our journey,"
the forest child explained cheerfully. Cursoon smiled and ruffled the noblin's hair. Turning his eyes toward the gnome, he commented while nodding approvingly.
"So, FarQuest lives on. Well done, Mr. llElevenLabs. These are yet more proofs that I was wise to bring you along."
He added the last few words with a playful grin.
Bring me along?"
The old gnome stammered, unable to speak for his exasperation. Stopping, he took a deep breath to calm himself while slowly pushing his spectacles back up his long nose. After this pause, he growled his reply.
"If you hadn't brought me along, you'd still be standing on the stoop of the trollop's den."
With that, llElevenLabs stomped off to continue gathering supplies. Cursoon suppressed a crooked grin, and then with a shrug meant to pretend innocence, he added his hands to the work. Thus, it was not long before they had loaded all 3 carts with as much as they dare. When they were finished, the bard took a deep breath, blew out a long puff of air, and declared them ready to depart. llElevenLabs rolled his eyes and double-checked Dawdle's harness. Fane, on the other hand, climbed on top of the cask, puffed out his chest, pointed toward the northeast, and let out a cheer.
"To Mudbrick!"
he shouted in his little boy's voice. Livid smiled at the tiny adventurer.
"We'll be needing to fill the water cart before we make for Mudbrick. Elsewise, we'll die of thirst in this searing land."
llElevenLabs remarked grumpily, and then wiped his brow with his sleeve. The day was already growing very hot, even though the sun had only been up for little more than 2 hours. At the mention of water, the Grey Maiden's smile quickly faded.
I suppose you're right.
Cure-Soon conceded with a frown. He was worried this would add to their travel time. Turning to Livid, he asked,
Where's the nearest well?
The shepherdess sighed.
There's 2 nearby, Mudpot and Sweetwater. Both are about the same distance from us, but one is more in the direction of Mudbrick. Mudpot is to the northwest, while Sweetwater is more southeast.
Even with the added time, Livid already knew which they would pick.
Mudpot sounds, well, muddy.
Cure-Soon commented with a grimace of disgust.
I cast my vote for Sweetwater.
Tippleglee added as he lit his pipe and took a long puff. The bard agreed and then asked,
How long will it take to get to Sweetwater?
It's less than 3 hours, but then we'll have to double back once we've filled your cask and watered all my sheep.
Livid answered, trying to dissuade them from Sweetwater as much as she could without being obvious.
I'd say a few hours out of our way is worth having clean sweet water to drink.
Tippleglee grumbled. Fane, still astride the water barrel, glanced at Cure-Soon, then Livid, and lastly at Tippleglee. After a second of trying to figure out the company's decision, the forest child smiled, pointed southeast, and shouted,
To Sweetwater.
Livid felt suddenly sick to her stomach, but her stubbornness made her clench her teeth and only give a quick wordless nod. Without any further response, she turned to lead them down the rough trail to the well in the canyon, the very same well that she had promised herself she would never visit again. As the grey shepherdess led the way, her flock gathered around her. Next came Fane, riding upon the empty water cask, while Dawdle pulled the cart. Lastly came Cure-Soon and Tippleglee, pushing their handcarts.
This thing rolls like it's empty.
The bard remarked with surprise as he pushed his cart.
Once again, Mr. Tippleglee, you have proven your skill as a master wood craftsman.
The old gnome said nothing, but as the bard snuck a glance out of the corner of his eye, he saw a slight grin part the little man's mustache from his beard. After a mile or two, Livid's flock slowly began to scatter out in a wide circle around their shepherdess. In this way, the sheep searched for any green thing they could find, while also keeping her within eyesight. Cure-Soon took advantage of the empty space that opened up next to the Grey Maiden. With hurried steps, he came to walk beside her. Glancing over at the young woman, he thought that she seemed noticeably disquieted, but he could not guess why.
So, tell me about Mudbrick. What's it like?
The bard asked while straining to weave a thread of cheerfulness into his voice. She shrugged while still frowning.
It's a village of round huts with a wall and a tree and a well.
When she said the word well, her voice was less than enthusiastic. Moreover, as she spoke, she grasped her dress with her free hand and wadded it up in her fist.
A tree?
The bard responded with raised eyebrows.
Those seem few in these lands.
Livid nodded. A moment of silence passed between them, but Cure-Soon was having none of that.
But what of the people in Mudbrick? Are they all like you? I mean...
He stammered, and suddenly he was sure he could taste his sandal. Seeming to take no offense, the Grey Maiden shook her head.
No, they're nothing like me,
she replied with a note of sadness.
As I said before, I'm a foundling. My master found me in the dust of the great desert. Clearly, whoever my people are, they cared little of what became of me.
The bard cleared his throat uncomfortably.
You can't know that. Any number of tragedies could have befell them to cause your loss. And as far as being different, well, we're all different. In some ways, even I've always been unlike those from my own homeland.
Oh?
Livid glanced over at Cure-Soon with a note of surprise.
How so?
Well...
He let out a sigh.
My father has a significant landholding, and like Tippleglee, he's a wise craftsman. My brother is a craftsman as well, and even my mother can make and mend almost anything, while Well, I only tell stories.
He shrugged as he admitted this. The shepherdess let a slight smile drift across her grey face.
But that's a very important job.
She paused and gazed at the horizon in front of them.
Old Mama Yor was always telling stories.
When she saw the bard's questioning look, she added,
Mama Yor was the name of the old woman who raised me.
Ah,
Kyorsoon nodded with understanding. Livid gestured to the rugged terrain around them.
This is the only land I've ever known. Tell me, what's your homeland like?
Livid looked to the sky, trying to remember.
What did you say its name was? Oh, Lakewood, right?
The bard sighed uneasily.
that's not where I'm really from.
He admitted with a grimace. The shepherdess frowned with confusion.
But you said,
I know.
Kyorsoon interrupted, and then a torrent of words poured from his mouth like a great waterfall.
I'm sorry. It's just I told Guileless the truth, and the trollop overheard me, and then she used it against me, so I thought I should keep myself from telling anyone else. But the path teaches honesty, so it's wrong to lie.
Path?
Livid echoed, but the bard did not notice her question amid his gushing confession. He continued unabated.
Plus, you're nice, and I hated lying to you, and I know you're nothing like Baleful. That's the she-troll's name, so I want to tell you the truth now.
Kyorsoon paused and took a deep breath. As he did so, Livid let out a small laugh, and the bard joined her with a slightly embarrassed chuckle of his own.
I'm really from Eagle's Peak.
He finally admitted with an apologetic grin.
Eagle speak?
She repeated in a questioning tone.
No, Eagle's Peak.
He corrected and then added,
That's what my grandfather named his land holdings.
Why?
Well,
the bard shrugged.
because when he was a child, he saw eagles nesting in the mountain peaks near the inn where he grew up.
He raised his eyebrows.
In fact, you might be interested to know that he was a foundling just like you.
Livid's grey eyes grew large, and her mouth dropped open for a second.
But if he was a foundling, how did he ever become a lord? My master was able to become a lord, but he wasn't a lowly foundling.
Kyorsoon held up a finger while still pushing his cart with his other hand.
That's actually an interesting tale.
He said with a slanted grin.
Perhaps a story could count as part of my pay for guiding you?
She suggested shyly.
No.
He replied with a mocking frown. An expression of disappointment passed across her grey, sickly face. The bard laughed.
No, only one story will not do. You must have as many as you like all the way to Mudbrick.
Hearing this, her mood brightened and her smile returned. While still pushing his cart, Kyorsoon gazed at the strange young woman and thought to himself,
She might be sickly and grey, but her smile is pretty enough.